Welcome back to your D130 W1 to part 2 of our Burger King logo. I think this is exercise 1, we're calling it. I have a 1 up here, so that must be exercise 1. Because our quick brown fox was not considered exercise 1. It was just like a practice exercise. So we're working on this, and remember, if you had to go away or something, you could go back to files, and then just look for it down here. If you don't see it, go to recents, but it'll be saved in your drafts. And I'll open it up again. There it is. Remember, you don't have to save. This auto saves. If you don't see the buns and the stuff, it's under here in this little arrow. So now you can see the top bun, the bottom bun, and we're going to work with some types. So I'm going to zoom in a little. I'm going to use Command plus. You could use Control plus, and that should be big enough. And I'm going to take my text tool. Now watch this. I'm going to take my text tool and just click once. Click. And then type burger. Now, if you type it in upper and lower, you can change that, and I'll show you where to change it just so you know. Now, after you type it, you could just click off of it, because then it'll be selected. So when you see that box around it, it's selected. Now, if you want to make it bigger, you could go here to text, and enter is a typeface, even though that doesn't seem like a typeface. It is, and you don't have to change that yet, but let's just change the size. Let's just make it like something bigger, like 36 for now. And I'll put it here. And if you want to make it even bigger, you could keep messing with the type sizes. But I'm going to go over here to this scale tool and just kind of make it bigger by grabbing on the top end here. And you can move it over as you're scaling it. So that's kind of as big as it needs to be. And you know, you could go up, down. It kind of scales from the middle. I don't know how it works this way. Oh no, you could scale it that way too. You could grab a corner. I guess if you grab from these things, it does it in proportion from the center, but you can grab it in the corner there. So if it, you know, if it's too big this way, you could do that. Now, one thing just to watch out for is when you're scaling it, it just scales, and then you lose your text identification here. So then go back to your arrow, your move tool, I should say. And we're going to change the font. We're going to use something called Nunito with an N, N-U-N. And I'll just type in, when I'm on here, I'll just type N-U-N and look for Nunito. And we're not using Nunito Sans. I think it's just Nunito. And it's kind of rounded, kind of, but we have to make it bold. So while it's still selected, and if it's ever not selected, you know, if it's not selected, you don't have to highlight in here. You just have to click on it and have that box around it. And then go down to Nunito where it says regular, make it black, because that'll make it nice and heavy. And also, we didn't make a caps yet, so let me show you how to make a caps. You're not going to use this, you're going to use the 3 dots. Click on the 3 dots while it's selected. And down here they have a uppercase, lowercase, title case. They even have small caps. Some fonts do not support small caps, some do. And then you could always make your own small caps, but we're going to use just uppercase, like that. And then you could just hit X here. So there it is. Now you can see it's bigger. So now if you tried to scale it, let me just show you this. If you're like, oh, I want to make it smaller, and it does that, that's because you're not on the scale tool and it's taking the text box and it's making it smaller. So don't scale. You can't scale it that way. You can change the point size there, and I'll show you how to adjust this box too, because now the box has an extra line in it. Then you could go to this box like in the first exercise and use auto width and auto height. Now, to make it smaller, again, you can use point size, or you could go to the scale tool and now grab it on the corner, and now you could scale it. Now, this does not stretch it or squash it. And we'll be doing some stretching and squashing, but for right now, we'll just kind of do it as close as it is. And I think that's probably okay for now. Now, that doesn't look exactly like it is. We're going to make it a little bit bolder, and we already have it black, so let me go back to my move tool so we see the type down here. Now we have it as bold as we can make it, so what can you do? Well, the only thing we can do is put a stroke on it. So let's put a stroke on it. There's no stroke on it. Let's hit this plus sign and we'll put a stroke on it. Now it's going to be outside the type, and you could put it center the type if you want. It shouldn't matter. Usually when we use outlines, we put them outside the type. So I'll just leave it outside because there's no reason to change it. Now this is at 1 pixel. Now we're going to make it a little bit thicker just to kind of make it a little bolder. I think maybe 3 might work. Let me see if I could highlight this and put in 3. That looks pretty good. We could always stretch it and make it taller, but I think that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to make it red. How do you make it red? Don't mess with this. Well, actually, we're going to have to change the fill and stroke because both of them will have to be red. But I'll go to the fill first, and I'll click here on that little swatch, and I'll take my eyedropper, and again, if you don't see the stuff, just kind of scroll over, and I'm going to select that color. Now, and close that. Now the stroke is still black. Actually, I like it black. But we don't want it black. We want the stroke the same color. So click on the stroke color, and then the color will be down here that you selected. This has document colors, so you could just use that. So that looks pretty good. Like I said, we could stretch this if we converted it to outlines, but I don't want you having to do that right now. If we need to tweak it, we can tweak it. Let's work on the king. So we're going to do the king. So there's burger. Now we already have this, so let's just copy this. Do you remember how to do that? Do Command D or Control D, Command D, and there's a second burger, and I'll just move it down here. And now to type in it, to change the lettering, the characters, you have to double click in here, so it's highlighted, and then I'll just type king, and now I'll go back to my scale tool. Now, if this box is like that, you actually would want to do the auto width. So I'll go back to move, sorry about that. I'll go back to auto width, and I'll make it auto width, and just put it on auto height, just so that's fine. And then I'll go back to the move tool, and now I'll grab on the corner and undo that. I screwed that up. Don't go back to the move tool, go back to the scale tool, and we want to scale it. All right, there we go. So that looks pretty good. I'll move it up there. That's not too bad for just kind of messing around with a font that's not that close. And this thing, I can nudge it down. By nudging, I'm using my arrow on my keyboard and nudge it down a little. Actually, that's not too bad. That looks pretty good. And I think that looks pretty good. That's not bad. I think it looked better than the one we did last spring. That looks pretty good. Now, if you want to see it without the logo behind it, the image, just go over here to the BK large and turn off the eyeball, and there's your image. So there, you made your first vector logo and you matched a Burger King. So you learned something about making a logo by looking at an existing one. And we made some modifications there, and if it didn't come out perfect, that's okay. This is just kind of practice. It's exercise 1. Now, you don't have to save, and when you want to turn this in, you could just go over here to share. You hit the share button, and then copy link, and then go back to coursework, and add a comment down here. Now this is the one I shared with you, but you're going to go down here, add a comment, insert link, paste what you just copied, make sure it opens a new window, and hit save, and then hit save again. So what you turn in is going to be this. So this is what you're going to turn in. It should look something like that, and you could even click on it just to make sure. It should open up in a new tab, and it should show your design. Now your design won't say view only. When I open it, it'll say view only, and I have to save it to mine if I need to. Now we could also save this as a PDF if we need to, or whatever. So this is a pretty neat program. We can do vector art. That's what Illustrator does. The stuff we were just doing with anchor points and all that, that's what you would normally do in Illustrator, not Photoshop. So we're doing vector artwork, and that's all you need to do for ex1, the BK logo. We're going to do a coat of arms also in here as you get familiar with Figma. I think it's a neat program to work with. You could copy and paste images in there, and it's very flexible. It just takes a while just to get used to it, to know that weird little things like deleting an anchor point and holding shift while you hit delete, and doing that weird escape thing so that the lines don't connect even though you're just adding a point. I mean, that's bizarre. I don't know why it does that. Maybe there's some way to turn that off. But anyway, that's ex1 BK logo. So hopefully you had fun doing that. Sorry for the delay because the first video got messed up. Hopefully this video will be okay.